name is Christoforos. I'm an international student from Athens, Greece. I'm a sophomore finance major.
My name is Clarissa McQuain. I'm a junior and I'm a forensic chem major. And my mom is Brazilian and my dad is American.
I'm Ayush Arora. I am a junior studying industrial engineering. I'm an international student as well. My dad is from North India. My mother is from the UK, and I went to a British Catholic school.
Are you more white than European or more European than white? Like your experience of whiteness there in the UK, how does it impact your experience here? What have you seen about white Americans that's kind of unique?
Very expressive. And I want to say that, like, in Congress, there's a pretty good mix with black and white Americans and I guess Asian Americans. But in Greece, coming back, the vast majority of the politicians are white, which says something about like which racial groups are in Greece.
It's my country, but it's not really my country, or but America doesn't want me, or I don't really belong here. All these kinds of things that people say, and I'm like, damn, man, you were so American and you don't really understand that, too. Do people in your country, like people talk about themselves as white?
So like Greece, from my experience, is a pretty white country, I guess because our ancestry is white.
But what's that mean?
It's what you make of it, I guess, but it's like a part of our, I guess, ethnicity. Not to say that they're not, I guess, Greeks that are not white.
Yeah, but do you, right, exactly. But do white Greeks talk about themselves as being white?
It's like, we take it as a given, for example. Like, we're white, like, it's the same goes with Americans. Do white Americans behave differently because they're white?
Well, this is a question, right? So here in the United States, whiteness, if you have this conversation with white Americans up here, whiteness is a thing that now, I mean, I don't think most white people aren't looking in a mirror, and when you look in a mirror, you see a white, you think like, oh, I'm white. White becomes this thing that they kind of, in a way, take for granted. But I'm wondering if that's true, how true that is in Greece.
Well, like coming back to Greece, it's more of like what's common in terms of like given the ethnicities.
Yeah.
I haven't like seen like a difference, or I think that it's like something really definitive, like that that makes a difference. I guess.
Okay. All right. Okay. I got it.
Like it's not that we have some opinions or some let's say. Like our culture is not because we are white. It's because we have all this history throughout the years that with philosophers and stuff that it doesn't really. I guess it's because we're white.
Okay, so here's one final question, and then we're going to move on. We'll come back to you. Are you more white than European, or more European than white?
I don't think I'm something more. I'm Greek. I'm European. I'm white.
Okay. All right. So for you, it's like it's all there.
But but the thing that first comes in mind is, I guess, Greek.
Yeah. Okay. Clarissa. So how about you? Like in Brazil, right? So we're gonna step outside of Europe a little bit, but white Brazilians came from Europe. So like, how is whiteness talked about in Brazil?
I don't really know exactly like how they feel about being white per se. I traveled to Brazil. I've never lived in Brazil, but I go and visit. Usually, like, people think of Brazilians and think, like, oh, they're darker, they're tanner. But there are some white Brazilians. Like, my family is white. I'm pretty sure they see themselves as white.
People use the term white?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
So your family's white.
Yeah.
They see themselves as white. What are some of like the politics of whiteness there that are different than the politics of whiteness here?
I think it's just a given. Like it's kind of normal. Like you're just gonna have like a mix of people who are white and who are a bit more tan. Like I think it's just more normal.
Like so in Brazil, you got a ton of racial categories,
yeah.
right? Like on the census, there's like 60 or so. Are there multiple categories of whiteness that people use, or is it not?
I don't really think so. I think it's just you're either white or you're something else. Like
Got you.
Yeah.
And do you see yourself as being here? How does being here in the United States impact that for you? How you see yourself? Like, go ahead.
Okay, so I see myself as white, but a lot of my friends, like I am a bit darker than my friends.
Uh-huh.
So I see myself as white, but they're like, oh, you're not white, like you're Brazilian. Like you look Brazilian. So.
Do you think you look Brazilian?
I don't think I do.
Yeah, I don't think you do.
Yeah. No.
Are these friends who have been to Brazil? Are these
No.
Brazilian friends?
No, these are American friends.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So that's one of those things that people like really,
Yeah.
they play with.
Yeah.
Like, once we, this is the ethnicity term that you said, once we sort of grab ethnicity, we make a link to physical characteristics. So you look Brazilian, so like people would think that, but if you've been to Brazil, you wouldn't necessarily think that.
Yeah.
The Black Lives Matter movement here was also a movement in Brazil. So has that shaped any way in which you think about your whiteness?
Not really. I think maybe for some people it could shift like how they think about themselves, but for me, I don't think it did.
Uh-huh. And so here in the United States, people talk about whiteness being a privilege.
Yeah.
But in Brazil, whiteness is really a privilege,
Mm-hmm.
right? So how do you make a distinction there? Like how do you see that? Do you think about it? Do you see it? Like, not that you have to. I'm just wondering if you do.
Yeah, I don't really know. I've never really seen it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't know.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, it's interesting. What's your experience of whiteness in the UK as a brown guy?
In my experience, it's never really mattered that much. It's like it depends on more where you're, not necessarily if you're white or if you're brown. It's more about, like for instance, we classify people as more of their country. So either you're British or you're not British.
Uh-huh.
Like more kind of like that at the end of the day, or say like at the end of the day, either you're Asian or you're not Asian, you're British or you're not British. It doesn't really matter where your skin tone is that much.
So how does that experience of being there and like understanding race there, or having the experience of race there, how does that affect how your experience of race here? Like your experience of whiteness there in the UK, how does it impact your experience here?
I feel like in the US it's a bigger conversation. People tend to talk about it a little bit more than in the UK. For instance, in the UK, like no one really. For instance, if I tell people in the US, like, hey, yeah, my mother's British, I'm from the UK, for instance, they would say like, oh wow, you don't look very British. Like that's not a conversation I'd be having back home necessarily.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I think people in the US are very curious, which is never a bad thing. But it's just a different conversation in the U.S. than it is anywhere else, I would say.
So, do you think it's more of a conversation here? Like, is it
Absolutely.
Yeah, like more politicized, more?
I feel like it matters a bit more here in the U.S. And like not in a bad sense in any way. It's more about people just trying to get to know you more than anything else. And I feel like a lot of people talk about the stiff upper lip. That's very true back home.
Like stiff upper lip back in the UK.
Yeah, like we don't really talk about that much. It doesn't really matter for that fact.
Right, like a lot of things are just kept hidden behind.
Yeah, and like a lot of things, not just how you look, a lot of things outside of that.
Yeah. So what do you know about white Americans? And you could maybe weigh in, one of you could weigh in on this too. Like, what have you seen about white Americans that's kind of unique?
Very expressive.
White Americans?
Very expressiff. Like,
Yeah? What do you mean?
For instance, when I landed here in the U.S., so I'm an international student, as I said, and like my first time living, I'd been to the U.S. before. Like living here was when I came to Penn State freshman year.
Yeah.
Like everyone's just talking too much. Hey, how was your day? And a lot of stuff like that. And I'm like, how do I know if you're a friend of mine? Because that's how I would talk back home to a very close friend.
Yeah.
And people I'm like meeting in the hallway are talking to me like that. So I went to my audit and I'm like, what's going on? Like, why is everyone talking to me so much? But even like if you go to buy a coffee, like, hey, how was your day? Hey, have a good day. For us, it's really not that common to have a conversation like that. And even like in a more interpersonal conversation with a friend, you talk about yourself, significantly more. You're just so much more expressive. Like things are I would never necessarily talk about my friends back home. It's just such a normal conversation here.
But you think that's your experience. This is just your experience, right?
Yeah.
Is it uniquely, you're saying this about white people, not Americans in general, but mostly white Americans?
Yeah, I would say that, yeah.
Yeah?
I mean, of course, it's hard to generalize, but in my experience, I would say yes.
Yeah. Christophos, well, how about
Yes.
you? Like, what have you learned about white people being here?
I guess that white American and black American are like all Americans in a sense. And they might express some different, I guess, cultural identities, given that they have different history. And like connecting to the class, which one was it, about the Black Devils that we watched online, like class 9, we could say that black and white Americans were in the different, I guess, parts of history. Like the ones were the slaves, and the white mostly were the ones that like implemented, I guess, the idea of that. But I wanted to add something else, which I think it could be judged interesting in this topic. So like, I guess most of us in this class and in the panel would agree that, I guess, Greece, Brazil, UK, the United States are fairly democratic countries. And a representation of like democracies are like political system in its country, of course. And where I'm going with this is, for example, we have the Greek parliament, where there are like 300, I guess, responsible people that kind of like represent the people of Greece. And the same goes here from Congress. And I want to say that like in Congress, there's a pretty good mix with black and white Americans and I guess Asian Americans. But in Greece, coming back, like the vast majority of the politicians are white, which says something about like which racial groups are in Greece.
And
in the America.
Yeah. Huh. So what? Go back to this
Because
question.
even like in the UK example, like I guess you're Indian, right? And like UK Prime Minister is Indian. So like it's more common to I guess the other countries to be more multiracial, like comparing with Greece, I guess.
Yeah.
Like-
So you're really white. So you really are white.
It's the
Okay,
ethnos, the Greek like ethnos.
Yeah, I
is,
got you. So here's a quick. I want to go back to this question. So people here. So the three of you could weigh in on this too. So what I hear from a lot of black and brown people often is like they see themselves as not even like Americans. Like you have Americans, and Americans are white Americans, and then you have all these, some too. I mean, obviously, I have tons of folks that are just like, no, we're American, man. But there's so many people that kind of almost remove themselves from American culture in some way because they feel like, in a way, the culture has removed them from the culture, right? But what you're saying is like, no, dude, you're American. Like do one of you can you weigh in on that? Because I see this a lot. Like when I'm traveling and I run into Americans who are not white. And so often it's just like, damn, man, you are so American. And I talk to them, and I know if we were back in the United States, they would say, oh, but I'm not really American because I'm somehow just set apart. And I'm like, man, you are so damn American. You're more American than I'm American, even though you have black skin or brown skin or something, right?
I would say as a non-American, I feel the opposite way. Like if someone, for instance, if I meet a person who's brown in skin color from Philadelphia and they're like, oh yeah, I'm a big Eagles fan, I would like, yeah, you're definitely American. Like it wouldn't necessarily cross my mind.
It wouldn't cross your mind.
Yeah, it wouldn't even, like for me, since I'm not American, like I would always think of them as an American.
Yeah, Americans are Americans. Yeah, you're right. So the idea though is a lot of Americans of color will often sort of almost separate themselves and not see like, well, America, there's just these comments like, oh, America it's my country, but it's not really my country, but America doesn't want me, or I don't really belong here. All these kinds of things that people say. And I'm like, damn, man, you are so American that you don't really understand that too. And then, Clarissa, I want to see if you want to weigh in on this. But go ahead, bro.
Just a note here. I think that we have to also segregate, in a sense, the difference between being an American and being an American citizen. Because like Americans also may be considered that they have the culture of an American of like Americans, while an American citizen may not have like the same culture. For example,
got you.
Like for example, let's say an international student here from Korea gets suddenly the American passport. Is he American? I mean, it's a rhetorical question.
Yeah. I got that. Hey, Clarissa, I have a question for you. What makes, in your mind, like what makes somebody white?
I think that someone's white if they have, if they have ancestry from a country that produces predominantly white people. Yeah, that's kind of it.
But what they look like? Does that, like, what's whiteness? You know? Because what about like this guy who doesn't look white, but dude, you could be white easily. I mean, you're just white. You could be here and you could just become white like that. Like he could just blend in with it. Could you look brown but actually be white?
Yeah, like I think I'm not gonna say that someone's white just because of what they look like.
Yeah.
A lot, if you say you're white and you're a different color, I'm gonna believe you. Like you can be white, like you're white. But I think your actions can also like come into play, like just certain things that groups of people do.
Got you. So going back to you, so you're from Brazil. So when we talk about black people and brown people, Brazil is a brown country. This is like what we use, right? So black people, brown people, white people, right? I mean, it's just this thing. We build these categories. Brazil is considered a country of a Latin American country, not a Hispanic country, but a Latin American country, meaning like you have minority status here in the United States. You are a minority, but you're like really pretty white.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that as a white person who's a minority?
I think when I apply to things, like when I apply to college or like a job or something, I put down like I am a minority and I say things like that on government documents.
Yeah.
I won't do anything like in terms of actions that will make other people know that I am a minority. Like I won't say, oh, I'm a minority, like you can't treat me like that or something like that. I won't do that.
No, but demographically speaking, you have to put you have to put your Latino. If they say, are you white, are you black, are you Latino, you got to put Latino, which immediately puts you in minority category.
Yeah, but I wouldn't purposefully use it.
Got you.
To like make me get something.
Yeah, I got you.
Like
to give you something.
Yeah.
But right. But this is so what do you think? Should she say she's white or should she say she's Latino?
I guess it's really up to her, and I feel like if she has the heritage, then there's nothing wrong with saying that she is, for instance, from a minority community. But on the other hand, you also don't want to necessarily self-segregate.
But listen, but she's not saying that she's really, I mean, you said that in the way that you said it, but that's not really what you're saying. You're putting on the document that I am Latino. And other people claim that as minority status, right? But the issue is that you're not saying I'm a minority, you're saying I'm Latina. And the rest of us say like, okay, that means you're a minority. So my question is then, but look at her, dude. She's as white as you get. She's whiter than Christofos here, I think. Right? What do you think, bro? Is she whiter than you?
I think she looks pretty white to me.
Okay. So therefore, should she say, what's your ancestry? Should she say, okay, I look in a mirror, all right, I'm white. Or should she say, no, I'm Latina? She is Latina, and she's white.
Well, you could always say other and say both.
Yeah.
But I guess it's really up to her and how she identifies more. If she feels more connected with Latin heritage.
Okay, dude, how do you identify more, as a Latina or as a white person? As Brazilian or as a white person?
I identify more as Brazilian.
Okay, so therefore you're Latina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if there's like an option for me to put like check 2 or more, or like
So you
whatever applies, I would check both.
Yeah, I got you.
Like-
I got you. So this is a really interesting question, right? Like, how do we do that? We've created this world in which we have decided that we're going to put these categories in place, and then we're going to force people into them. And I think you should put Latina, like that's what you should use. But at the same time, it's very complicated because this race stuff is highly politicized, and so it's like, whoa, damn, man. Bro, wait, hang on. Do you have a question? What is whiteness? Yeah, what's whiteness?
What's whiteness? I don't really get the ness part of it. I think it could be seen by various perspectives of what could be considered whiteness. The one could be like the stereotypical behavior of someone that is judged to be white. And
Dude, do you engage in that behavior? You're white, so do you?
I'm white, but like I don't.
What do you do that we know you're white? What do you do?
Nothing. It's just like my skin, because I think that it all comes down like to like I guess the skin.
Okay.
There's not really the behavior of. I don't think that we could judge a person because he's white. He does that.
Yeah,
for
I got
example.
you. I got you.
I was just saying the stereotypical bias that someone may have in mind.
No, I got you. That's
concerned
cool.
to the whiteness.
Dude, what's whiteness?
I agree with everything that he said. I feel like at the end of the day, it's about skin color. And you can even say you're from Northern Africa, right? And you have a really...
But it's not just skin color, right? Because we've decided she's on a category, she's Latina. That means if there's only choose one, she's not white, she's Latina. And whenever you say Latina, dude, is Latina a brown person or a white person? They're going to be brown. So, that means she's not white. So what's whiteness?
I got no good answer here.
Okay, it's a question, right? I don't have an answer either. I'm not sure what whiteness is.
Can I ask you something? Like, is Latina, for this purpose of this discussion, considered an ethnicity or a race?
Considered ethnicity.
Ethnicity.
Yeah.
But like white is considered a race.
Yeah, exactly. This is why it's really weird. Whenever you see...
So it could be both, because race, like my race is white, my ethnicity is like
Yeah, but we
Latina.
don't ask that. So we ask okay, what are you? And then we'll be like, white, black,
Okay.
Asian,
Close-ended questions,
Asian Pacific Islander, Native American, Hispanic, white, non-Hispanic, or Hispanic, or
Got it.
Latino. Hispanic is someone who derives their ancestry from Spain, but that's not you. You're Brazilian, so you come from Portugal. So it becomes really complicated. So the answer to the stream, by the way, I don't know what whiteness is. I have no idea. I know it when I see it sometimes, but oftentimes I don't.